The announcement came just as Mom placed the cranberry sauce on the table. It was Thanksgiving 2022, and we were all gathered around the long oak dining table in our family's farmhouse in Asheville, North Carolina. The same table where Dad used to sign deals for Grayson Timberworks, the company that had carried our family name for nearly 3 decades. Before we dig in, Dad began, standing at the head of the table, carving knives still in hand. "I have some important news to share." His voice held that commanding tone I'd grown up with, the voice of a man used to making decisions that shaped lives. My siblings, Ethan, 38, and Claire, 34, straightened in their seats like kids waiting for a surprise. I sat at the far end, 31 years old, quietly bracing myself. I already knew what was coming. I'd overheard snippets of late-night conversations between Dad and Mom all month. "As you all know," Dad continued, "Grayson Timberworks has been the backbone of this family for 29 years. I built it from nothing, took risks, worked nights, made sacrifices so all of you could have the opportunities one never did." Ethan nodded like a loyal soldier. "Dad, what you've built, it's incredible. Everyone in the region knows the Grayson name." Dad allowed himself a small smile. "But I'm 70 now. Your mother and I want to enjoy the years we have left, travel, spend time with grandkids, live without stress." Claire's eyes brightened. "So, does this mean you're ready to let Ethan and me take over?" Dad's expression hardened, the air in the room shifting. "Actually," he said slowly, "we've decided to sell Grayson Timberworks. We've accepted an offer too good to turn down." Silence. Even the old grandfather clock seemed to pause. "Sell?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Dad, this is our legacy." "You've both had 15 years to step in," Dad replied, his tone firm. "Ethan, you've been building apps in Silicon Valley. Claire, you run an interior design business. Neither of you ever wanted this until now." The truth hit hard. They'd counted on inheriting the company, imagining managers would run it while they collected the profits, a retirement plan disguised as loyalty. "But we could learn," Claire protested weakly, "bring new ideas, expand into modern markets." Dad shook his head. "That ship has sailed, Claire. You've never set foot in a lumberyard. You don't know the difference between kiln-dried oak and pressure-treated pine." Dad's voice hardened, years of frustration spilling out. "You think business management means posting on Instagram and picking trendy fonts. The truth is, neither of you has ever cared about Grayson Timberworks except as a safety net." Ethan's face turned crimson. "Dad, that's not fair. We're your children. We deserve to inherit what you've built." "You deserve nothing," Dad snapped. "Inheritance is earned, not handed out like pie after dinner. And neither of you has earned the right to run this company." Claire's eyes brimmed with tears. "So, you're just selling it to strangers, people who don't care about our name or our employees." "I'm selling to people who will protect both," Dad replied evenly. "Summit Holdings has an impeccable reputation and has promised to keep every employee and maintain the current management team." At that, Ethan and Claire exchanged a glance, a flash of hope sparking like kindling. "How much?" Ethan blurted. Dad's chest swelled with pride. $140 million. "That's what Summit offered, and it reflects everything I've built, the equipment, contracts, goodwill." Claire clapped her hands together. $140 million, Dad? That's amazing." "It is," he agreed, his smile tinged with finality. "And your mother and I intend to enjoy every dollar. We're buying a retirement home in Hilton Head, taking that Danube River cruise, and finally living stress-free." The message was clear. Ethan and Claire weren't getting a cent. "But what about us?" Ethan's voice cracked. "You'll leave something for your children, right?" Dad shook his head. "I'll leave you what my father left me, the chance to carve your own path, the same chance I had when I started Grayson Timberworks with $6,000, 0 cents, and an old truck." I'd stayed silent, watching my siblings cycle through confusion, hope, and outrage. Finally, I leaned forward, heart pounding. "Dad, who exactly is Summit Holdings?" He turned toward me, surprised, as if he'd forgotten I was even there. Throughout my adult life, I'd been the quiet sibling, the one who left Asheville for some finance job and rarely joined family conversations about timber or business strategy. Truth was, I'd been building something bigger in silence. Summit Holdings isn't just a name Dad tossed out. It's a private investment firm based in Charlotte that specializes in acquiring regional companies and scaling them nationwide, especially in construction and manufacturing. And you're confident they'll take care of Grayson Timberworks? Dad asked, still holding his glass like a gavel. Absolutely, I said evenly. I've done my due diligence. Summit has an impeccable track record, strong financing, and a commitment to preserving family legacies. I set my wine glass down, my heart pounding. Dad, there's something you should know about Summit Holdings. His brow furrowed. What's that, Harper? I am Summit Holdings. The silence was electric, so sharp I could hear the tick of the grandfather clock across the room. What do you mean? Dad asked, voice low. I mean, I own Summit Holdings. I founded it 4 years ago. I'm the one who made the $140 million offer for Grayson Timberworks. Ethan stared at me like I'd grown wings. That's insane. Harper, you do accounting or something? No, I corrected, calm but firm. I run private equity and commercial development deals. Summit Holdings is my portfolio company. We manage $340 million in assets, family-owned businesses, timber, real estate. Claire shook her head in disbelief. You're joking. $140 million? Yes, I said simply, reaching into my bag and pulling out a folder thick with contracts. $140 million. I'm paying Dad to ensure his legacy stays intact. Here are the signed purchase agreements. My name is on every page. Dad's face went pale. But the lawyer said Summit was a private firm in Charlotte. They were right, I said. I moved there for the market, for opportunity. While you thought I was crunching spreadsheets, I was building something real, studying your company for 2 years, preparing this deal. I stood and glanced toward the backyard where Dad once taught me to sand wood and swing a hammer. Summit Holdings isn't some faceless corporation, Dad. It's me, the kid who learned business by watching you work. The difference is, I didn't forget where I came from. Ethan's phone was out, his fingers flying as if Google could undo the truth. Mom whispered, almost to herself, Harper, you never showed interest in the timber business. And that's where everything changed, I said. But trust me, what happened next left the entire family speechless. Want to hear their reaction? Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. You went to college, got your finance degree, moved to Charlotte, Mom said. Mom, I said calmly, I got my finance degree so I could understand the business side of construction. I moved to Charlotte because it's one of the fastest growing development markets in the country. I wanted to learn how successful companies scale and survive generational transitions. I turned to face them, all the people who thought they had me figured out for 8 years. They believed I'd traded sawdust for spreadsheets, that I'd chosen a boring desk job over the real work Dad did. The truth was, I'd been building something bigger. For the past 8 years, I've been growing Summit Holdings into a regional powerhouse. We've acquired 12 companies, developed over $200 million in commercial real estate, and earned a reputation as one of the most trusted firms in the Southeast. The words landed like hammer blows. But why didn't you tell us? Claire finally asked, her voice trembling. Because every time I tried, I said, you changed the subject or made jokes about me pushing paper while Dad did the heavy lifting. It was true. For years, family dinners had been a slow burn of condescension. Ethan and Claire bragged about their creative careers while I was dismissed as the quiet sister who left home for a life of spreadsheets. 2 years ago, I continued, I heard whispers that Dad was considering retirement. So, I ran a formal analysis of Grayson Timberworks, your contracts, your growth trajectory, your succession challenges. Dad leaned forward, curiosity replacing shock. What did you find? A well-run company with deep roots, loyal clients, and a respected brand, I said. But also a business with no succession plan and 2 children who've never shown interest in running it. Ethan opened his mouth, but I held up my hand. In 5 years of dinners, you've never once asked Dad about supply chains, safety regulations, or market trends. Claire, you've never cared about workforce retention or forestry management. You both assumed you'd inherit a profitable company and hire someone else to do the work. I returned to my seat, folding my hands. Dad, Summit's offer isn't just about buying Grayson Timberworks. It's about scaling what you built into something even greater. Grayson would become our flagship operation for expansion into Virginia and Tennessee. I let that sink in. This isn't strangers taking over, Dad. It's me, your daughter, making sure your life's work grows stronger. Dad's eyes sharpened with interest, the way they did whenever a serious business discussion was on the table. We've identified more than $150 million worth of development opportunities across Virginia, Tennessee, and Georgia, I explained. Grayson Timberworks would be the cornerstone of that expansion. I slid another set of documents across the table. And this isn't just about growth for me. This acquisition creates advancement opportunities for your people, your legacy team. Project managers could become regional directors. Site supervisors could oversee multi-state operations. Administrative staff could develop expertise in business development and strategic planning. Dad nodded slowly, his mind already working through the possibilities. And the Grayson name, I added, stays on the sign. Summit Holdings operates as a parent company, but our acquisitions keep their local identity. Grayson Timberworks will remain Grayson Timberworks, just with bigger resources, bigger projects, and long-term stability. Across the table, Ethan was glued to his phone. Harper, this says Summit Holdings has managed over $800 million in projects. That's correct, I said. Claire's jaw dropped. And you own this? I founded it, I said simply. I own 78% equity. The rest is with 2 strategic partners. Claire's eyes widened as she did the math. So, your net worth is approximately $240 million? I said, not counting this acquisition. The silence that followed felt heavier than any I'd ever known. $240 million, Mom whispered. That's the current valuation, I confirmed. It fluctuates, but that's the ballpark. Dad leaned back, staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Gone was the indulgent smile reserved for his quiet daughter. In its place was the serious, almost reverent look he saved for high-stakes deals. Harper, he said finally, if you own Summit Holdings, why pay full market value? Why not just tell me and work out a family deal? I took a breath. This was the part that mattered most. Because I want to earn Grayson Timberworks, not inherit it, I said. I want you to choose Summit because we're the right partner, not because I'm your daughter. And because paying full value ensures you and Mom have complete security for retirement. You've earned the right to enjoy every penny of what you built. I looked around the table at their stunned faces. This isn't a goodbye to your legacy. It's the next chapter. Ethan was still scrolling on his phone, his expression shifting from shock to awe. Dad, Summit Holdings has been recognized by the Southeast Construction Alliance. They developed that mixed-use complex in Charlotte that won the Green Building Award last year. Claire chimed in, her voice shaky. And the regional hospital expansion in Raleigh? They were featured in Architectural Digest. That was you? I nodded once. That was us. Dad leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. Harper, how long have you been planning this? I took a deep breath. Honestly, since I was 16, when you let me help with payroll one summer. That's when I realized construction wasn't just about timber and tools. It was about finance, strategy, and relationships. I wanted to understand all sides of it, not just operations. Why didn't you tell us? Claire asked quietly. Because I needed to prove myself on my own terms, I said. If I told you 8 years ago I was starting an investment firm focused on construction, what would you have said? Dad sighed. I probably would have told you it was too risky without field experience, and I would have tried to help. Exactly, I replied. And then every success would have looked like family favoritism instead of earned achievement. Ethan finally set his phone down. So, what happens to us in all this? You're worth what? Hundreds of millions, and you're buying Dad's company for $140 million. Where does that leave us? Cut out completely? It was a fair question, one I'd thought about for months. I met his eyes. What do you want to happen, Ethan? I don't know, he admitted. I turned to Claire. And you? She hesitated, then exhaled. I guess I always assumed I'd inherit a third of whatever Dad built. Now I'm realizing what Dad really gave us was the chance to build something ourselves, and I never took it. Dad's voice was firm. Harper understood that lesson. She acted on it. You two didn't. I nodded. But it's not too late. Summit Holdings is always looking for people who share our values. If you're serious about learning this industry, there could be a place for you. Ethan's eyes lit up. You mean working for you? Working with me, I corrected. Starting where I started. Entry-level project coordination, client relations, safety compliance, the real work that teaches you how things get built. I could see them weighing the offer, their expressions shifting between pride and hesitation as reality sank in. They'd expected to inherit a kingdom. Instead, they were being asked to build their own thrones. The difference, I said, is that Summit Holdings can offer you what Grayson Timberworks never could: larger projects, diverse markets, advanced training, and a clear path to leadership based on merit, not bloodline. Dad's approving nod was subtle but powerful. That's exactly the right approach, Harper. They need to earn it, just like you did. The months that followed turned what began as a tense Thanksgiving standoff into a strategic partnership. The acquisition of Grayson Timberworks closed without a hitch. Dad was impressed not just with Summit's resources, but with the respect and care we brought to every detail of the transition. Ethan surprised me. He accepted an entry-level position as a project coordinator at Summit, humbly starting where I had once started. With Dad's mentorship and my guidance, he found his niche, thriving in problem-solving and client relations. For the first time, I saw him passionate about work that built something tangible. Claire chose a different route, expanding her design business to specialize in branding and interior concepts for commercial development. She became one of Summit's go-to creative consultants, blending her artistic strengths with business strategy. It wasn't the legacy she imagined, but it was one she earned. And Dad's retirement didn't mean disappearing. Instead, he transitioned from daily operations to serving as a consultant for Summit. He advised on high-value client relationships and mentored the next generation of project managers, channeling decades of wisdom into something enduring. 6 months later, I stood at the podium during our first annual Grayson Timberworks Employee Appreciation Gala at the same country club where Dad had toasted major contracts for 30 years. Only this time, the celebration wasn't about maintaining what was. It was about building what's next. Looking out at our employees, now partners in a bigger vision, at Ethan and Claire, no longer heirs but contributors, and at Dad, his pride shining brighter than ever, I realized something. The strongest family businesses aren't the ones frozen in time. They're the ones that evolve, honoring tradition while embracing innovation, preserving values while seizing opportunity. That Thanksgiving announcement that felt like an ending? It was only the beginning. What do you think about the way I handled this? Would you have done the same? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you believe in earning your place instead of expecting handouts, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. And here's my advice. Never let others define your worth. Build your skills, stay focused, and prove your value through action, not words. Your future is yours to build.